Here we are. We're live. Look at my hair. I just washed it like less than an hour ago. It's still wet. I should have something on my head, but this is what it's like. And I just like, I didn't even see, because they have a thing over that until like it goes live. So I didn't even see myself. So, hello, Tennessee, Mississippi, Michigan, and Montana. Got a bunch of M states in Tennessee. So yeah, I just washed my hair. Look at the sheen. So my face is still swollen, but it hasn't itched as bad since I started using that hemp stuff. So I do have allergies, as you can tell, but and it's been like 20-mile-an-hour winds all day. Hot. It is hot, and it is windy, blowy. So my allergies have been flared up a little bit. All right, we got West Tennessee. Pardon me. Andrews, Texas, Kentucky's in here. All right, let's see if we can get all 50 states. You guys smash the like button. A lot of stuff going on. Tell you what, how blessed were you to be listening to this YouTube channel a month ago, a month and a half ago, when somebody was telling you there are going to be interruptions in some of the major things like meat production, like power production. Man, there are problems and troubles all over. And so they just, I guess, announced they killed 2 million chickens, and they're going to be killing a lot of pigs. Uh, that's happening all over the place. So it's crazy. I also have sunburn. I only comment on my face at the beginning because it's the first time I see it. I don't see it any other time. All right, y'all. How everybody doing? If you're on the chat, type into the if you're here, type into the chat, the comment section, whatever. Kentucky's here. All right. Hello, Scott. Type in hello, say where you are. Let's chit chat. If you guys have something you want to talk about, you have a topic to talk about, you have a question going on in your area, you have a report to give, something of that sort. I am wore out. I am wore out. This is day 7 of the off-grid lockdown challenge, 30 days. A little less than a fourth way through the 30-day challenge. All right, Oregon's here. All right, Virginia's here. We're about a little less than a quarter of the way through. I have done all right. I am worn out. I am worn smooth. And so tonight and tomorrow, I got to spend about 6 hours editing day 2. I talked to Sean, and he said day 1 should be ready to go tomorrow. We are on schedule for a 7 o'clock broadcast right here on YouTube. It'll say premiere, and I'll be here with you watching it. We may premiere Facebook too, but I think we're going to premiere it here. I'd like to get everybody over here. So welcome to everybody who's in the Bunker Nation on the Facebook page. If you are not, if you are on YouTube and you're not on Facebook, or if you're on Facebook and you didn't know about it, we have a Bunker Nation page on Facebook. It's a group, and you can join in, and the people over there get a lot of goodies. They've already gotten clips from some of the episodes. They've gotten promises, and the promise is that I'm just saying that the first t-shirt sold out, completely sold out. And I'm not saying there's another t-shirt coming. I'm not saying there's a Bunker Nation t-shirt, but if there is a Bunker Nation t-shirt, the people on the Facebook Bunker Nation page are going to get first dibs on it. That's just going to happen. All right, Wardachheim is here. He bought TP at the store today. Woohoo! So it was hot today. It wasn't as hot as the day before. It was 90 something. And then yesterday was 75, and today was like 80. It felt like 84, 85. They were saying 82. But the wind was blowing like 20 miles an hour, and you'll hear it when you watch this day 5 through 7. Just so windy. And so here we are, and like I said, I'm worn out. I'm learning a lot about doing this on my own. Gotten a lot of stuff done, but have not gotten a lot of stuff done. I had hoped to have the garden fence done in the first week, which isn't going to happen. Hello, Pat. Hello, my wife, Danielle. Glad y'all could be here. But there are other things that have interceded. A lot of things have interceded. Today, while I was doing all the work, and you're going to see it, and there are people out there going to go, wow, how in the world does he keep going that much? And then there's other people that are going to look at that and go, what's he doing? He's walking around a lot. He's walking to the back. He's walking to the front. He's walking to the pigs. He's walking to the chickens. He's walking to, he's walking. I have averaged 12 to 13 and a half miles a day during the first 7 days. But there's a lot to learn and there's a lot going on. You guys are going to really, really enjoy it. I'm really looking forward. Day one. So here's the thing. So we started, didn't have any idea what we were doing, any idea how long the editing was going to take, didn't have any idea that the internet was going to be a real huge problem, the way that they're throttling everything. And so pie in the sky, oh, we're going to have an episode out every day for 30 days. And of course, equipment was bad. And I was bad at it. Didn't know what I was doing. Didn't know how much, just the time that it takes to keep batteries charged. Some Yahoo had piped off and said, oh, that way for 12 years. We haven't been recording it. You haven't been carrying a camera and a post hole digger. Yesterday, I got the, what do you call it? The Hero 7 GoPro. Wow. I'm going to do a full review on it. The thing is fantastic. And I know it's not like the most expensive GoPro that's out there. They've got a Hero 8 and they've got, higher dollar. This is nice. And the video is nice. So this morning I went up and went fishing. It was, my own negligence. I did not bring everything I should have brought, but I went fishing this morning. I took the camera up there. It was so gorgeous. It was so gorgeous this morning. But keeping going has been a challenge. And so what happens is I get up there, I get some work done. I'm doing a ton of stuff, a ton of walking, a ton of hauling feed, working on the fence, working on this, working on that, chasing chickens, all this stuff. And then I got a message. I got to go do something. And so today it was not only the fact that my phone and the GoPro filled up, the SD cards filled up like by 10 or 12 o'clock. So then I go, okay, no problem. I'm just going to go dump all that stuff onto the computer. Then I'll get back at it. No, it's all got to go up on the cloud. And of course, the internet's not real speedy. And so it took 2.5 hours to get the stuff off the devices. So now if I had one of those little wallets that has like 47 SD cards, you just pull one out, you put another one in. Middle of the night, you come down, you upload that stuff. It all happens overnight. But I don't have any of that stuff. I'm doing this old school. I'm doing this like they did it in the 1800s. In the 1800s, they didn't have no SD wallet. They had SD cards the way we do them now. You had to put it in there, get it on your computer, and then try to put it up in the cloud. That's the way they did it in the 1800s. They didn't do it. No SD wallet just sitting there. No way. That didn't happen. So that's what the thing is it's taking a ton of time, and then we haven't even really gotten into the editing. We have 7 days episodes of film, and we are finishing episode 1. Yeah, I need SD cards. Like I know probably I could use 10, but I could also use 1. SD cards, and they have these little plastic wallets. You can keep the cards in there so you can keep them organized. But I could use 10 of them. because what happens is I'm dumping everything onto the SD cards on the devices. But if I don't have another one to put in there, then I got to come down there and pull that out. And I got this thing I put in the computer, and I put the SD card in there, and then I got to upload it. And then because of my power issues, if something happens, I lose power, we can't access those files. So I want it on the Dropbox so that Sean can get it if Sean has to do it. I have one that's the main one I'm using is like 32. What is it? Gigs? What are they? Megs? 32? Whatever. Whatever the thing is, it's 32. And then I got one that's like 128, which is great. But I still only have one. So, and it got full. But the 32s and the 64s and the 128s are all great. Those are all fine. So, anyways, sometimes it sounds like I'm complaining when I'm only explaining. So, and I'm not complaining because I had a wonderful day today. It was very windy, sunny. I am sunburned. Yeah, I think 32 gig is probably the standard that I have. That's what I've actually put on my Amazon wish list is 32 gig. And those work great. You know, they work great. So I fixed the solar system. I talked about that yesterday, the solar power. But the way I fixed it, it's still limping. So I can't do everything at once. I can't charge everything at once. And I'm going to get to a bottleneck. I talked to my friend Terry today, and he's the one that ordered the Goal Zero Yeti 400, which we're waiting on. And it could be here as early as Wednesday or Thursday. So I'm hoping that that happens because that's really going to multiply. The problem with the 150 is great. The 150 has gotten me through 2 years, but I have not tried to do what I'm doing now in those 2 years. So with the 150, I can power the internet, and I can power the laptop, and I can charge a phone, and I can do these 3-watt bulbs, no problem. If I'm trying to charge the Ryobi battery, and I'm trying to charge the GoPro battery, and I'm trying to charge the phones, and I'm trying to charge the laptop, that stuff, it's too much for the 150. And I'm just limping with the solar power. So anyways, all that adds together to the fact that doing what I'm doing is great. It's fun. It's exciting. It's an adventure. But I'm having to stop and take care of these technical issues, which is a little bit of a pain. Everybody go smash the like button just because you feel for me. So I wanted to talk a little bit today, but I also want to talk about whatever you guys want to talk about. So if you have questions and comments, put them in the chat right now, and I'm reading it as it comes up. Miami's in the house. Man, we got Miami, Virginia, Tennessee, Kentucky, Michigan, Montana several times, Texas all over the place, Oregon. We got a lot of people. All right, so what else is going on? I caught video of Rascal catching the chickens for me. Once I caught a real good picture, and then the other video, I had the video facing backwards. So he caught the chicken. It was a perfect. I was in the right place at the right time with the camera facing the wrong direction. So basically, I was like DC movies. And so that's all going on. What else is going on? Y'all tell me a little bit about the news. I caught a little bit. I mean, I seen the whole thing where they're all he said, she said, and they're all after each other politically, and the left is on one side and the right's on the other side, and everybody's at it. I want to talk about me. Hello from Terry's wife. Hello, Terry's wife. I don't know what you mean by that, Danielle. I'm going to talk about you guys. Whatever y'all want to talk about. A friend of mine was looking for book suggestions, so I bought her a set of Pennsylvania 1 through 5 individual books. She's going to love them. And the thing about the individual books is it's not like intimidating at the beginning, like Wick. Wick is like hugely intimidating, but it's one of the best investments of time that you will ever put into a book. But and Pennsylvania is a big book too. So yeah, the individual books is a good. Staying away from the news. Yeah, I'm totally away from the news. I see what people say about the news. and then I know how to interpret it, right? So I got people that I follow, and people that I know what their opinion is and what they're gonna how they're gonna fall on every issue. So there are people out there who, um, if they hear one thing, it's automatically going to default to this, and there's people hear the same thing, you're going to default to this. That helps me kind of understand what probably actually happened. Um, and so that's kind of how I study the news, right? You know where HuffPost is, and you know where Politico is, and you know where Drudge Report is, and you know where uh, all these different news organizations from the left and the right. I ignore all those and I don't read them, but I watch the people comment on them, and from there you can determine what actually happened, and you can be pretty accurate as to what actually happened. Yeah, you're right, Patricia. She said I was a broadcasting major, saw how that sausage was made, and ran the other direction. Yeah. Well, what you do is you start with a conclusion now, and then you go out and make the story that fits your conclusion. That's how the sausage is made now. And it's probably even worse than that. That's really simplification. But so all that stuff's going on. I got a lot of great. Put a post on the Bunker Nation on Facebook, the group, and said, what are the things that you guys would like to see? Some people answered like this. We would like to see this. Some people answered with questions, which is great too. Um, what physical size for the SD cards? They're like the micro SD. Yeah, micro SD. Yeah, micro SD. I could show you one. They're the ones you have to have the adapter, and then they go in that adapter, right? The micro. I think that's a micro SD. A lot of SDs that the Hero 7 likes, and you need to add one to your wish list. I have one on there. I think there's one on there. All right. So yeah, let me know what you need. But I think there's an SD card on the. You just have to scroll down. So, anyways, like I said, there's a lot of stuff going on. We were talking about. I would love to see people's faces when we were talking about meat 2 months and a half ago. When we were talking about power, we were talking about the internet having problems 2 months ago. It's funny how many people just thought that was ridiculous. And probably listen to this guy saying there's going to be a meat shortage. Well, I don't want it slower. I want it faster. I don't know nothing about no techniques. And so, the thing about the SD cards is it's just that much faster. I'm not trying to kill myself, but I'm killing myself because I'm spending so much time walking a quarter of a mile 15 times in a day because the phones are dead or the phones are full or the cameras are full. And I remember I used to watch some shows. That survival shows and stuff like that. And I was like, why do they need 15 batteries? Why are they carrying all there? Well, to do it, you don't have to have the gear. To succeed, you don't have to have the gear. To let anybody know and to teach people, you got to have the gear. That's about that when I'm out doing it. I think you've had 6 of these holes dug easily, hot as it is. But when you actually have to hold the camera, move the camera, go charge it, somebody messages you and says, "Hey, we need that for the video." That makes it a little different. Hello, Cora, Michael. Glad to know you. I'm glad that you're here. Hello. Well, we don't want the slower one anyway. All right. So here's the thing. A lot of people ask a lot of questions about, things they wanted to see me do. They want to see the animals on the land, and there's a lot of that in the videos that are already made. They want to see. There's some people that are like want bushcrafting stuff. I'm not really that much. I mean, I do that stuff, but I'm not really that much into bushcrafting. I know how to do it, and I've made stuff and cold weather and warm weather survival, and we made lean-tos and tables and what reflector shields and whatever needs to be made. For the most part, the the difference between what we're doing and what I think people expected or what people thought they were going to get comes down to our concept of money and what money is needed for and what money is used for. And I'm going to get into that in my rant for the day, or my discussion. It's actually a deep philosophical dissertation, not a rant. Well, Michael, hello to your son Mark. 10 and 8. Wow. Getting up there. Hello, Mark. And why I say that is it's hard for a person who has not experienced freedom to get their mind around the concepts. The hardest thing for people to understand is their own chains. Because they don't feel enslaved, they don't feel robotic, they don't feel enslaved, and yet they are, right? The idea today, and it's in the video. I just washed my hair because it was so hot, and I just decided that water coming out of that hand pump, pitcher pump, is cold and feels good. So at first I was just going to dump a pitcher on my head. Then I was there. I was like, why not just go ahead and wash? I had my head in the sink. Just go ahead and wash it while you're here. And the thing that went through my mind is, this was free. And you don't think that when you wash your hair, it costs you something, but it does. We caught the water off the roof. We may or may not have bought the soap, but we know how to make it. I can make soap. I got everything I need. I got fat and I got ashes for lye. That's how you make soap. A lot of different surfactants that you can use. But even that costs you, right? The water coming through that pipe, the light turning on. And so people don't really realize that they live in a system where every minute and second of their life is monetized, right? There's a great book, and I recommend it to everybody. I've recommended it before, but you ought to read it. I'm not a big fan of the last chapter and a half, 2 chapters, which gets into some theological stuff that is a little problematic. But the rest of the book is fantastic and really will change the way you look at the world. And it's called Henry and the Great Society. And I'm going to give you a quick run story because there's no way to spoil it. Henry lives on a farm called Whispering Pines. It's hard to tell the time this would have taken place, but it likely was in the 40s, early 50s. A lot of people in the 40s and early 50s were still living like their great grandparents lived. They did not have electricity. They lived on a dirt road. Their town was tiny. They did not have chain grocery stores and chain malls, and all that stuff didn't start till the late 50s and 60s, and mostly on the well-traveled byways. Small town America didn't have them. So Henry lived at Whispering Pines with his family. And hello, Plain Jen. Greetings. He hooked up a horse and buggy to go to town. The story begins, and he tells the story of him and his horses and how he milked the cows and excess of things like milk or whatever, eggs. They would put them in the wagon. They would uh, put the harness on the horses, and they would drive the 12 miles to town, whatever, however many miles it was. And it was a dirt road. And while they were traveling, because of the speed they were traveling, they could see so and so's field had petunias growing in it, and so something had gotten into his fence. And you're traveling at a slow rate of speed, and you see things and you notice things, and you have a sense of place and of connection with the community and the geography. The sky stretched over your head is a part of your reality in your world as much as your neighbors. And especially when you live in that type of community where you help them build their house or you help them build their barn, when you ride by, you have a sense of ownership of that community spirit and feeling and all of that. So they would go into town, and back then, before mercantilism became corporatized, so you had merchants, and then that became mercantilism, and that became kind of a corporatized industrial trade system. In the beginning, there was no 14 levels of middlemen siphoning off their bit, right? So you took your eggs and your extra milk to the store owner. Now, the reason they called it the store is because that's where you took the stuff that you stored to go trade. And if you remember your grandfather, they used to say, "Oh, I trade with him. I trade with them. I've been trading with them for 15 years, right?" Your place was the store. You stored food in your root cellar, you stored food in your larder, and then the stuff that you didn't need from your store, you took it to this place where a merchant made an exchange. So you went and said, "Oh, I want this tobacco, and I want this wax, and I want this honey," and they would gather all the things that you needed, and he had a value for those things because he knew what he paid for it, and he put his markup on it. And then he looked at your eggs and your milk, and he knew what he could get for it. So he took that off your bill. And a lot of people never touched money. Yeah, I trade with everybody. That's the way they used to speak. I trade with him, right? A lot of times there was no money. In fact, people didn't even really use money that much until the debt system got created, the dollar economy. Even into the 50s, a lot of people didn't use money. That was why so many people made it through the war and all that without the panic and without the craziness, because they already had gardens. They already grew their own food. They already traded for and bartered for the things that they needed. So in Henry and the Great Society, they go to town and they trade and they barter. And he comes home and he goes around his farm and he explains how joyous his life is, right? He can go into his barn. He didn't have very many things, but the things that he had or he had traded for, so he had personal investment in his tools and all of this stuff. Where the turn of the story comes is the neighbors come and they want to pave the road. It's dangerous. It takes too long. There's potholes in it all the time. It's not a county or a city issue because back then roads were private. You people like, what about roads? They had roads long before they had city government roads. People just got together and fixed them. The path that people took to the store was the road, and everybody got on that path, and then their properties lined up with it, and that path was there, and then it was improved by the people who lived there. Well, they want to pave it because there was potholes and it was a constant headache. And if you pave it, you never got to worry about it again, right? So they paved the road. Pretty soon, it's not safe to drive to the horses on that road because now they're cars, but it's paved, cars will traverse it very high speed and it's very dangerous. And he justifies that, well, it's no longer safe for me to take my family in the wagon to town to trade, so we're going to have to get a car. The next step is they come in and they say, we want to run power lines, but the only way we can do it is if everybody on this road agrees to pay their portion to get the power lines. Well, why would I want power lines? I've never needed power. I've got my kerosene lanterns. I got my candles. We make our own candles from the wax that we get from our bees. We have light. Light is free. But do you understand that you could have light in the middle of the night? You could have light whenever, and it costs pennies, like less than pennies. To go out in the barn at 3 o'clock in the morning when you hear a fox getting in the chicken house or whatever, and to flight, and it costs you a tenth of a penny, or a penny, or 2 pennies. And here's the thing: the more of us that use it, the cheaper it gets. That you pay, it's a teeny amount. You're gonna have a light. What do you need power for? You want a barn, you want a light in your house. That's it, right? You're talking about pennies. Okay, I'll go in with you and get the power. So they run the power out, right? So then the salesman starts showing up. Well, why wouldn't you want this dishwasher? Costs pennies to run it. How much time does your wife spend washing dishes when she could be doing something else? Wouldn't you pay pennies to free your wife from that? And what about you? Sitting all day sawing with a saw when you could zip right through that thing in 10 seconds and it costs you. So then they sold him a washing machine, they sold him a dryer, they sold him lamps for his bedside, they sold him all this stuff, right? And then when he would go into the store, they had stuff with cords on it to plug in, and it's another couple of pennies. And of course, all that added up. Wasn't getting the price that he needed for his stuff that he was selling anymore because now there were middlemen. There were big conglomerates that ran up land and that were making eggs, and they could sell those things for pennies. Why would he pay that much for yours? So his expenses and his electricity bill kept climbing, and his car bill and his insurance. And at the same time, his income was decreasing. Maybe they could say, like they do today, oh, there's no inflation. But he noticed that the sizes of the products were getting smaller. You couldn't buy a pound of coffee anymore. It's like 12 ounces. When he would come home, his children weren't there because now they had more free time, right? You got free time. So that free time got filled with going places and traveling in the car. And pretty soon you need 2 cars because yeah. And now we're not making enough money. We can't pay the bills. What are we going to do? Well, we need to sell off the back field because we need money to pay the bills. And after you sell a couple of the fields, now you got no more sell. So you got to go to town, get a job. Wife needs to work. She's bored at home. You come home from work and there's nobody there. The whole thing is this long slide downhill. And the book really lays it out perfectly what happened. This is what happened to Henry. And Henry is you. But see, the thing is, you didn't take the trip. You were just born into it. You were born as Henry, late stage Henry. You never got to stand on the hillside of Whispering Pines as a free man or a free woman, eat the food that came right up out of the ground, drink the water that fell right out of the sky. And so the question that was asked to me was, how does barter work? How does trade work? The first thing you have to do is you have to separate your mind from the dollar economy. So long as your mind is mired in the dollar economy, it will never work. It will never work. Barter and trade will never work on any level until people are able to separate themselves from the dollar economy, which means you don't pass your trade with your neighbor or your friend or your brother-in-law through dollars. If you're past every time the value of whatever you have, and I want to talk about what that is, passes through a dollar, there are 5,000 hands that are pulling out parts of it every time. So if you say, even in your mind, you say my eggs are worth $3 a dozen, or a dozen, $3 a dozen. You've now passed into the dollar economy. The other person who's going to trade with you now is doing the same thing, and you're adjusting the value not based on what the value is to you and what the value is to them, but what they are based on passing through the dollar economy. So let me give you an example. Forget for a minute that meat is going to become scarce, and it's going to become very scarce pretty soon, almost certain. Forget that. Forget the fact that cattlemen are rushing their cattle to the market, which is going to drive down the prices, and it's going to make stuff available, and it's going to look like we're wrong because they're trying to dump these animals that they can't afford to keep and they can't afford to feed because they don't have any money and they only got a $1,200 check. Forget all of that. Forget all of that. Let's just say, ceteris paribus, things are like they were. And you have meat. You bought meat and you got it a good price, like we did on the meat that I canned, I think on day 3 or 4. So you paid $4.99 for some big roasts. In your mind, $4.99 a pound. In your mind, you have passed the value of that meat and through the economy, and in your mind, it is now $4.99 a pound. There is no way in the history of the world that a pound of meat should be the same price as a cup of bean water, coffee, a cup of coffee at Starbucks. But the way the economy is that the more industrialized the system is, and the more industrialized any system is, the more the quality decreases and the interest of the money elite and all of that increases. As I mentioned with the eggs with Henry, when you got a guy that buys every place in the county or the country and starts producing 50 million eggs a year, he can do so at a very low cost. His labor is minimal, and he's able to cut all of the expenses that the person who's doing it right, the person who's raising good quality nutrients and nutrition in them, right? Same thing with meat. This meat has been artificially deflated as far as what it's worth. So think about a pound of meat. 1 pound of meat, if you have a family of 4, means that everybody in the family could have a quarter pound of meat, a quarter pounder. You got to have other stuff to make a quarter pounder, but a quarter pound of meat is a good sized portion of meat for an individual for a meal. That means 3 pounds of meat would feed your family for a day. A lot less would feed your family for a day. But we're just throwing out numbers here, right? So going through the dollar economy, $12 a day would provide your family with this particular meat. But we all know there's cheaper alternatives. We all know that if you're actually living on a budget and you're actually cheap, you can buy stuff that's cheaper. You can get chicken for 89 cents a pound on sale. Most of us don't eat steak and we don't eat meat most of the time because we're poor But I'm just saying, so $12. Now let's remove that dollar economy. Let's remove it entirely. If some guy came to you and he wanted to do labor, he said, my family is destitute. We don't have any money. We don't have a way to get money. The society has crumbled. We're in a depression. Nobody's hiring. And I need to feed my family. If you said, I will give you 3 days supply of meat for 1 day of work, he would probably jump at it, right? I'm curious. I want you to answer me in the comment section. If you had a family, you had a wife and 2 children, a new depression comes and it's 10 times worse than the last depression. So all of these people who are furloughed, all these people who have jobs, all these people who thought that the money they were going to get from the government was going to be endless, all of that has collapsed. So like in the late 1920s, early 1930s, into the 40s, you have hobos, you have people who go from house to house looking to do work, and they come to you and they say, I will, and the owner of the house says, I will give you 3 days supply of meat for work. Would you do it? All right. So based on our numbers, entirely irrational numbers, but the numbers that we have, you get $15 for a day's work. Now, how do you feel? These people that want $15 an hour. See, I would do it if my family was hungry and I could get 3 days supply of meat for 1 day's work. I would do it. But then you put it through the dollar economy and you're paying this guy $15 an hour, which is like, $15 a day. Sorry. I'm saying this because if you bring the dollar economy into it and barter, it falls apart. If one person holds on to that dollar economy, the exchange is not going to be equitable and it's not going to happen. What you have to do is you have to come into a barter situation looking at the true value of what something is worth. Right. You have to look and say, okay, how much are eggs worth now? In other words, for me right now, living in my 30-day off-grid lockdown challenge, let me tell you, I'm going to give you a quick overview. I've been 1 week into a 4+ week challenge. I've eaten less than 1/4 of the food that's available, which is good, and I've also put some meat into the root cellar, which is great. But I still know that I don't want to end this one challenge with no food in the root cellar and no meat, because what happens if this thing goes south in the real world while I'm out here displaying it? What happens if it really goes south? Do I want to end up with less food than I started it? So the one thing that I have that is virtually free, we are augmenting the chicken's feed right now, but that doesn't have to continue. People have kept chickens for thousands of years without buying hen scratch at the store. I can grow, and we used to do this. The hen scratch that I have, we used to do this, didn't we, Danielle? I can plant it and grow more. Like one seed of that hen scratch will grow a whole plant full of that stuff. We used to do that. We used to actually take handfuls of the hen scratch. We would till up the ground and we would plant it. And when that grass, the crop coming up was 2 feet high, we'd just turn the chickens into them. And it would take, rather than 1 day's supply of food, it would take them a week or 2 weeks to get through all that greenage, right? So my point is that eggs are virtually free if you keep it. And somebody else mentioned what happens if your chickens die. I want to get to that. So eggs right now in my situation, and if the situation got or eggs, you can survive. Do you know you can survive on eggs? You may not be happy. Some people might have an allergy to them. But if you don't, eggs are a perfect food. They really do have they have the omegas and they've got the vitamins and they've got protein and they've got the whole nine. I mean, the the thing in that shell was designed to support an entire life. And so as things get worse, what are eggs worth? Are they worth 2.99 a dozen? Or Danielle, what did you used to sell the eggs for at the farmer's market? Now, if everybody's got eggs, price comes down. It's natural. It's natural. This is the way it's supposed to work. This is not late stage crony capitalism where there's 40 cents in the middle of it and the government mandating a bunch of stuff that drives the prices up. The value of a thing should be determined by how much of it is available and how much is it necessary. Investment that went into it. And so what you have to do is you got to stop thinking in terms of dollars, and you have to $3 a dozen, right? So you have to stop thinking in terms of the dollars and stop passing. So the question I got was how does barter work? There's a couple of different ways you enter into barter. If you're a forward thinking person, if you were listening to me in February and March and early April, you were investing in things that have long-term storage value and survival value and foolishness. You weren't out there spending your money on empty calories and boxes of sweet cereal and the garbage that they wiped out of the shelves, but you were spending on dried meat, canned meat, things like that, things that were calorie rich, nutrient rich, storable, shelf stable. All right. So if you're a forward thinking person, you could put up stuff like that. Within the reach of my hand, I have at least 30 of these dried, cured sausages. Salt, absolutely. Chris, you're from the class. Everybody, smash the like button, subscribe, make sure that you comment, all of that. But I'm not to where I'm going yet. So if you're a forward-thinking person, you can spend the dollars that you have to get things that would have value, whether or not, no matter which way things go, they're going to have value. When I get to the salting day on this 30-day challenge, you guys are going to be blown away by how much salt it takes to preserve one carcass. It's a tremendous amount of salt. So I was on a survival group the other day, and I never comment on there because it's ridiculous mostly. And someone said, "Oh, I don't worry about none of this stuff. I got you. I'll go out and get me some critters." They always say critters. You can always tell a poser because they're going to go out and get them some critters. Okay, you've been able to find it. You need to look up Praseks, Praseks, Praseks. And if you not find them, there are other people that have them, but Praseks is the name of this sausage, and you can order it online. And the thing is, once your mind is out of the dollar economy, you can actually think clearly about stuff that has real value, real trade value, real borrow value. And what you buy is not all there is. There's what you are and what you can do. So here's where I'm getting to the point that I wanted to make all along. War Dogheim says, I went to the day someone else had gotten the idea on lard. Yeah, but I think if you went to more than one store, you'd find that not enough people even know that lard is a really, really great value. Also, hey, by the way, if you can, and I would never eat it. The worst thing I'd ever do with it is eat it. But two that are very valuable for others is vegetable oil is very valuable to make lanterns. And if you can get it, sometimes I see vegetable oil, bottles of vegetable oil for less than $1. Yeah, that's pretty good. That's pretty good lamp oil. That's cheaper than lamp oil. And the other one is sugar, white sugar. And I know there's been a bit of a run on sugar, at least here. But if you can get sugar in bulk cheap, get you some 5-gallon buckets and fill them up with white sugar. Get about 10 of those buckets. Sugar is good for a lot of things. Eat not one of them. Barter is huge because people with sugar and chocolate in particular are more addictive than morphine. Sugar is actually creates an opioid like response in the brain. And the addicts, I don't eat sugar hardly at all. I like a donut every once in a while, and I like a cake or a pie every once in a while. But the people that are addicts will trade anything for sugar when the time comes. So you have the stuff that you buy, you have the stuff that you can make. Now, the stuff that you can make, if you have some creativity and you can grow things and you can get stuff, true wealth to the ground, then you have very little invested in it. Its value is tremendously high. And then you have the stuff that you know and that you can do. Okay, so here's where I was going with all of this. What is your life worth? Ask yourself that. What is your life worth? Because I've said this all over the country and all over the world for 20 years. What we call money is merely a representation that is given to you to represent the hours and the minutes and the seconds of your life. When you contract with an employer as an equal, oh my gosh, I could do just on labor. When you contract with an employer as an equal, you're saying, I'm going to give you this many hours and minutes and seconds of my life. And in exchange for those, you're going to give me this many FRNs, whatever you want to call them, pieces of paper that represent value. The hours and the minutes and the seconds of your life are static, which means they don't change. What you promise to give, you give. If you promise to do 8 hours of labor, that 8 hours of labor is static. It does not diminish unless you're lazy or you're a bum and you get fired because of that. The hours themselves do not diminish. The person on the other end of the exchange gets what it is that they paid for. What you get is daily altered, even after you get it, by mechanics and magicians and thieves and robbers and arbitrageurs who diminish the value of it after you get it. Did you know that? Did you know you made a fair and equal trade? And then after you got your part, they sucked the value out of it even while it went into your pocket and even while you were walking around with it? It's a fact. They do that. The dollar that you got yesterday is not worth what it was worth today. So that's the problem with the dollar economy, is that it is a casino that's weighted against honesty and labor and industry and farmers in particular, and those people who do productive work. Those people who do not do productive work, who do work, but their work is not, it doesn't produce anything, benefit because their investment in many cases is not physical. And therefore the dollar cost averaging of their loss is less, if you get what I'm saying. So if somebody says my consulting fee is this price, what do you have to compare it with? It's a non-physical transaction. The market demands it. I understand that, but that doesn't mean that there isn't a diminution in the value of it based on what you actually get because you didn't know what you were actually going to get. When you're buying something that's non-physical, you're buying vaporware, you're buying a promise, and quite often the promise is not what it was delivered, right? So the actual value based on the dimming of the dollar at the same time, it's hard to establish. But when you actually do physical labor or you produce something, you're a producer. You're giving your end of the deal, which is the hours and the minutes and the seconds of your life, which is a finite amount. There's a limited amount that you will ever be able, and you're being paid in a diminishing uh, system that robs from you. Okay. In barter and trade, we can't let that happen, right? We can't let that happen. So we need to know what has value. The reason people ran out and bought toilet paper is because they did not know what happened. I blame them. I defended them because they're ignorant. They traded the hours and the minutes and the seconds of their life for something that didn't have the value, something that was going to stand up. But you have to realize that you're doing that. You have to realize that what you're doing is you're trading the hours and the minutes and the seconds of your life, and that has value. You have to establish a value for it. And it doesn't mean you inflate your prices or your barter. It just means that when you take the dollars out of it, it becomes more rational, right? Remember the 3 days meat for 1 day's work? It's irrational that people are demanding the equivalent of weeks and months worth of meat for 1 day's work when the work they do is not quantifiable. It's in many cases unnecessary. But that's where we are. My whole point in this is that barter and trade is a wonderful, wonderful way to get things that you need, to hold on to your value, establish the things that you have and what you need and all those things. The mistake you will make is if you try to pass all of that through the dollar economy. Can salt blocks like the Cargill's 50-pound salt block be used for storage of salt for people? You have to really, really check. A lot of them have copper in them, and you need copper in your bottom. Of them have other things that you would not want in there. There are such things as pure salt blocks. Salt is in bulk is so cheap that I probably would not go that direction. And I'm not one of these people that says, don't get iodized salt. Don't get, I'm not a salt hipster or whatever. I like sea salt. I buy bulk quality sea salt, but at the same time, I also buy iodized salt, table salt, canning salt, whatever I can get cheap and on sale. 50, get 50-gallon drums if you can't get 5-gallon buckets, 6 or 8-gallon buckets. Fill them up. Don't worry about salt going bad. You don't have to put a bunch of air absorbers in there, water absorbers. You don't have to put bay leaves in there. Just put them in a bucket, put a lid on it. If moisture gets it solidifies, that's the way they used to sell it. You used to have to get it that way. You just take out a chunk and you scrape it on your food, right? As far as barter, trade, food preservation, everything else, salt is one of the most valuable things in the world. Still is. It's just not represented in its value at the store right now. So it's a great buy. Pardon me. Dried meat, highly valuable. Things that have been properly, authentically cured, sausages, cheeses, wine. Pardon me. My allergies are really. I need to put this thing on. I need here it is. Yeah, $30 for 50 pounds, but I think you can get 50 pounds of table salt for cheaper than $30. Yeah, if it's just sodium chloride, then it should be good. It should be good. But we've gotten salt blocks that had stuff, and they actually had a sticker on there that said, "Do not feed this to horses. Do not give this to goats or whatever." Because there's other stuff in there. Just make sure that's what it is. If it's sodium chloride, then that's fine. You break it up with a hammer if you need to, or whatever you need to do. Probably easier to store. You can probably just stack it. You know. So those things that have value, but think in barter. Think about what something's worth. Think about the time, effort, the labor that you have into it. Do not exchange it into dollars. Exchange it into days, into time. Bartering, and we're trading time. Time is the exchange rate that is the same for everybody, except for me because I'm a time traveler, but for everybody else. If I trade you an hour of my life, then the fail safe trade is for an hour of your life. Okay. If I'm there, this is what a lot of people don't understand. And when I talk about something being produced, value and wealth is produced, right? There's not a static amount. I walked out of here tonight when I got off the line with you, and I went through all our old wood, fallen wood, or I went and cut down a tree and I fashioned a beautiful chair. That chair had not existed other than in the form of the raw, and now it has intrinsic value that represent the hours and the minutes of the days of my life that I put into it. It doesn't have to have a dollar value. It has a value for what it is and what it can do. If I trade that to you, I have hours and minutes and seconds of my life, materials, pain, suffering, whatever else, and that's what I want from you. Right? If it took me 36 hours to make it, 30 hours to make it, whatever, we've seen the value of things get destroyed because of national trade deals and all this other kind of stuff. Then we can sit down and we can say, okay, well, it took you 36 hours to make 10 pounds of cheese or whatever. So we sit down and we talk about that's a fair trade, then we trade. And guess what? Nobody made any income. There's no third party that needs to get a piece of it. The government can't come in and say that we made a profit, because I cannot profit if I direct trade of an hour of my life, an hour of your life. There was no profit. This is why Benjamin Franklin said this. I want to read it. A lot of people don't like this, but it's totally true. Totally true. He says, finally, there seem to be but three ways for a nation to acquire wealth. The first is by war, as the Romans did in plundering their conquered neighbors. This is robbery. The second by commerce, which is generally cheating. The third by agricultural, the only honest way, wherein man receives a real increase of the seed thrown into the ground, and a kind of continual miracle wrought by the hand of God in his favor as a reward for his innocent life and virtuous industry. Some people don't like that because they don't like the bash of commerce. But commerce, I'm a capitalist, but I'm only a capitalist in the sense that I believe in a free market. Absent a real system of barter and trade, I believe in a free market. And I don't believe in these artificial restraints or impositions that government puts on it that alters the value of things and destroys the value of what you're getting and all of those things. At the same time, the desire to maximize gain and minimize cost eventually creates a system of graft to make things cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. They become either harmful or they become valueless. But to try to get the maximum price, to pay the least for the materials or the labor, eventually it becomes a system of graft. I got a whole talk I could do about labor, about why I believe that people don't value their labor properly. That 50 pounds of sea salt for $38 at a zero standard. Yeah, and sea salt's good. Sea salt's great. And at the same time, I buy that stuff. But if I've never been in a Co, I've been in a Sam's, and if I'm in a Sam's and I can get 50 pounds of iodized salt for $12, it's a pretty good deal. Hey guys, I've gone over an hour, and that's against my rules. Lord willing, tomorrow at 7 o'clock, we're going to premiere. I appreciate you guys tuning in. I appreciate you guys listening, even if you don't agree with me. Lord willing, tomorrow we're going to have the premiere the first day. It's going to be rough. They'll get better. I promise you they get better in the 7 days that we've done already. I want to tell you guys all, thanks for tuning in. Join the Bunker Nation on the Facebook page. Go down here into the description. If you're going to buy anything from Amazon, if you're going to go buy sea salt, if you're going to buy anything, first go down into my description, take one of the links, click on it, go to whatever it says. You don't have to buy it, and then put in the search what you're looking for, then go buy it. And at least, your price stays the same, but I make like 50 cents. We're going to do a fundraiser pretty quick, and it's going to be a big fundraiser. But the big thing we're doing right now is we're trying to get to 2,000 subscribers, and I need your help. I think we got 4 or 5 since yesterday. That's not going to do it. Everybody that's watching this, if you're watching it now, if somebody shared it with you, if somebody told you it's valuable for you to watch, please hit the red subscribe button, click on the bell, tell them you want all the notifications, because it's going to be valuable for you. Believe me, we were telling everybody to buy meat and to buy dried meat and all this stuff 2 months ago. I appreciate you all. I love you. Lord willing, I'll see you live in a couple of days. I may do a live during the day at some point, but tomorrow on the premiere, I'll be here, Lord willing, in the comments section with you. I'll be watching it with you live. All right, that's going to be here tomorrow. Write it down. Don't plan anything. It's going to be a party. It's going to be great. Have no idea what it's going to be like. We'll see. Love you guys. See you soon.